1999 AD, 5893 AM. Flooding kills 9,000 people in Venezuela, South America. A cyclone kills 9,392 people in eastern India. In August, a great eclipse passed over Europe, Turkey, the Middle East, all the way to Gujarat, India. As the moon shadowed Turkey, an earthquake followed, 7.4 in magnitude, and then earthquakes rocked Greece. Tens of thousands of people died in Turkey. John F. Kennedy Jr. and his wife Carolyn Bassett Kennedy and sister-in-law Lauren Bassett died in a mysterious plane crash. This was the third Kennedy assassination. Comet Linear was discovered to emit X-rays. Comet Encke appeared. Isometric year, 1997 AD, Hale-Bopp Comet, cyclone in India, Hurricane Mitch in South America, assassination of Princess Diana. 1. Nostradamus, A Life and Myths. 2000 AD, 5894 AM. Y2K scare is revealed to be a hoax. 5-planet alignment of Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn on the other side of the Sun. Delegation of international scientists announced the completion of the Genome Mapping Project. A space imaging satellite took pictures of a boat-like structure on Mount Ararat in Turkey. The private company's photos show that the structure has broken in half in the ice, Noah's Ark. Isometric year, 1996 AD. Planetary conjunction of Jupiter, Saturn, Chiron, Mars and Venus. Scientists cloned first mammal. Double helix DNA formation appeared. 2001 AD, 5895 AM. June 11th, Timothy McVeigh is executed for bombing the Murray Building in Oklahoma City in 1995. A quake kills 20,000 people in Gujarat, India. Earth passed through the denser regions of the Leonid meteor field. Falling stars seen brilliantly at a rate of 3,000 per hour. A crop circle formation of extraordinary dimensions appeared at Milk Hill in England that encoded the sum of 2,448. Egyptian number for cataclysm, paralleling the year 2448 Annus Mundi, 1447 BC, when Egypt was destroyed in disasters as the Israelites fled the country in the Exodus. This formation also encoded the sum of 25,740, which in days counts down to 2070 AD Midsummer, to the planetary Exodus known better as the Resurrection event. See Anunnaki Homeworld. 2070 AD being the 3000th year since Israel rifted into the 10 tribes of Israel and the tribe of Judah and others. Russians admit that Yuri Gagarin was not the first man in space. Scientists at the Ames Research Center released data on the discovery of carbon-rich meteorites found on Earth, loaded with organic compounds, including amino acids and sugars. The greatest conspiracy ever hatched by the Israelis against the American people and government serves also as the greatest evidence of the total control the Jewish people have over the US government, from the White House on through every branch of the United States military. The World Trade Center attacks are the most misunderstood events in American history. The SOP of the Israeli Mossad for 50 years has been to financially support, train and provide resources to those wanting to commit terrorist acts that the Mossad finds would also be beneficial for Israel and its international agendas. Saudi Arabian extremists seeking to destroy the World Trade Center, which was an epicenter of globalist Jewish financial activities, as well as attack the American symbols of power, the Pentagon and White House, were aided by an entire worldwide network of organizations and individuals controlled by Mossad handlers. The first passenger jet to hit the WTC on September 11th was Flight 11, which had exactly 11 American Airlines personnel aboard, 2 pilots and 9 attendants. The WTC tower was itself 110 stories high, or 11 times 10. The jet was a Boeing 767 with 92 occupants. Flight 175 United Airlines slammed into the 79th and 80th floors of the South Tower, a wing striking the 78th floor. This too was a Boeing 767 having 65 occupants. Eyewitnesses in New York noticed that the second jet that was supposed to be Flight 175 was a Boeing 767 that had no windows. The other two passenger jets heading for the White House and for the Pentagon were United Airlines Flight 93, a Boeing 757 with 45 occupants, and American Airlines Flight 77, a Boeing 757 with 64 occupants. The media informed the public that the two passenger jets that struck the WTC towers, one after the other, were commercial Boeing 767s, Flight 11 and Flight 175, when in truth they were not. The WTC was struck by remote-controlled military-grade Boeing 767s with no windows. Boeing manufactures these for the US military. The Pentagon was not struck by a passenger jet. No one saw a passenger jet in the area, and witnesses described what sounds exactly like a US Predator drone, possibly with an explosives package. CBS on November 28, 2001 reported, revealingly, quote, "In an astonishing stroke of luck, the terrorists had hit the only section of the Pentagon designed to resist a terrorist attack," unquote. The combined total of victims that died from the 9/11 terrorist attacks aboard the four passenger jets was 266 people. However, the total seating aboard these jets was 684 chairs. There has never been given a satisfactory explanation as to why so many of these chairs were vacant. There should have been at least 600 victims. The very first on-site eyewitness reports gathered by the local media in New York claimed that as the tops of the towers burned from the plane impacts, a series of distinct explosions were heard and felt by many people that perfectly describes charges set off in a controlled demolition. In fact, many engineers and architects have voiced their disbelief that jets knocked down the WTC towers. Never before in history had a fire felled a steel-framed building, causing it to collapse. The WTC had 554 massive steel columns, from 30 to 50 feet in length, a metal that does not begin to melt until 2800 degrees. The fires in the towers burned at a possible 1300 degrees. The media's jet fuel explanation is ridiculous to those with engineering knowledge. For these superconstructions to have collapsed, then thermite charges had to have been placed carefully so as to ensure that the gigantic towers did not fall over onto other skyscrapers, but fell straight down, just as demolitionists are trained to effect. In fact, the media totally censored the fact that a B-25 bomber in 1945 slammed right through the 79 to 80th floors of the Empire State Building in New York City, and the inferior skyscraper of 1945 was never in any danger of collapsing. What happened on September 11th could not have happened without top-level US official involvement. NORAD, located at the Cheyenne Mountain Military Complex, along with many other radar and satellite surveillance services, ever watchful of American skies, would never have missed these events or delayed their responses. Coincidentally, at this exact time, NORAD with the US Air Force was conducting a very confusing series of exercises over America, pretending that commercial jets were being hijacked at exactly the same time that hijacked commercial jets vanished from NORAD screens and were replaced with military-grade Boeing 767s that hit the towers and a Predator drone that hit the Pentagon. The only passenger jet that was actually destroyed full of Americans was that one shot down over Pennsylvania. 3 passenger jets were secreted to a US military installation, and those people have never been seen since. They did not die in the WTC or Pentagon. Any number of black-budget military science labs could have used and eliminated all evidence of these unfortunate people. The hijacking exercises were specifically timed to promote confusion. The Pentagon was struck precisely 60 years from the day that its construction was begun on September 11, 1941. Further, September 11th was the anniversary of the League of Nations proclamation of the British Mandate, which was made public in Palestine on September 11th, 1922, the first major step in the creation of the Jewish state. Right up to the 9/11 attacks, lower-level FBI agents and other federal investigators were infuriated by the various ways that US officials blocked their efforts, many uncovering evidence of the plot. Some had their funding cut off. In New York at Ground Zero, the FBI arrested 5 Israelis who drew attention to themselves while on a van roof videotaping the WTC disaster, whooping and hollering as if they had just scored a major victory. Investigation revealed that the 5 men were Israeli Mossad intelligence operatives. Immediately after the WTC attacks, the FBI detained 140 Jews for spying, including major Jewish intelligence agents. US government documents read that these Jewish spies in America targeted and penetrated military bases, the DEA, the FBI, and dozens of government facilities. The WTC was part owned by a Jew and was the global financial epicenter of the Jewish international business empire. A very high percentage of Israelis and Jews worked every day in the WTC, and many visited from other buildings, other cities, and other nations. The WTC on average contained 28,000 people, but on 9/11, not one Jew died in the complex. This is a mathematical impossibility under any set of circumstances outside what had actually occurred. A Jewish conspiracy to destroy the WTC, to catapult the American emotional response that would support the Middle East Israeli agenda, the fall of Saddam Hussein. In fact, investigation unveiled that the Jews who worked in the WTC all received a text message warning to stay away from work by the firm Odigo, which was later mentioned in the Washington Post news bites. The conclusion of a study conducted by the US military, the Army School for Advanced Military Studies, was that the Israeli Mossad was, quote, ruthless and cunning, has capability to target US forces and make it look like a Palestinian Arab act, unquote. Both the FBI and the CIA concluded that the WTC attacks and Pentagon was a huge covert operation using an international network of at least 100 terrorists spanning 3 continents. Terrorists, Israelis, Jews, traitors. With documented proof of spying on American interests, Michael Chertoff, a Jewish Zionist who was head of the US Justice Department's Terrorism Task Force, as well as being head of the Justice Department's Criminal Division, dropped all charges against the spy ring, knowing it would become a public relations nightmare for Israel. The journalist Robert Perry summed up the situation perfectly when asked about President Bush's agenda implementation. He was no doubt privy to the Jewish scheme and sought desperately any pretext against Hussein when he said that Bush's SOP is, quote, to create a sense of crisis, a fake crisis, and then to, through fear, stampede the American people into a certain direction. That often is into the waiting arms of his Bush's corporate allies, unquote. The World Trade Center disaster was an epic tragedy twofold. The tight media controls the Jewish people have over the American people, and the media of the rest of the world has guaranteed that any who offer evidence that the Jews were involved is automatically anti-Semitic, unpatriotic, and just plain stupid. Americans suffered the attacks and then suffered the deception, not knowing who their true enemies are, while they send their sons and daughters to foreign lands to die and be hurt for Israeli foreign policy agendas. All the terrorists were Saudi Arabian, and yet no Americans are rising up demanding that the USA invade Saudi Arabia. The Jewish war against the Israelite-descended peoples of Europe and America has never ended. This hatred is only masked more cleverly, and the battles are so sophisticated that the victims have no idea who it is that rules and yet destroys them. Isometric year, 1995 AD. Oklahoma City bombing by Timothy McVeigh. Major crop circle formation at Longwood Warren of Solar System in 2033 AD. Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin assassinated at a peace rally. 1. Dark Moon. 2. Sight Unseen. 3. Alice in Wonderland and the World Trade Center disaster. 6. David Ray Griffin, Paranoia, Issue 50. 9. Jewish Supremacy. 19. Camouflage through limited disclosure.